Welcome, Alicia Dunham, to the Rundown with Ramon, and congratulations on the launch of your brand new book, How to Talk to Your Enemies. How to Talk to Your Enemies, launching as we recorded this just in the past few days. Hope everybody, first and foremost, go out to Amazon, look up the name Alicia Dunham. You can see it right on the lower left of the screen, and we'll have it and we edit it. How to Talk to Your Enemies. So, Alicia, I'm going to ask who you are in a bit, but I just want to get right to one question: is why did you write the book? I thought you were like this guru of book publishing. So I'm looking at it like how to publish your bestseller. Nah. How to write your bestseller overnight. Nah. Which you can do all that. But where did this book come from? Why this book and why now?
Thank you so much for the question, Ramon. And I think all of us come to a time in our life where, I've been helping people write books for 20 years, and it's something I can do with my eyes closed. I'm an expert at it. I enjoy it. And there was a deeper meaning for me to be on this planet. And I personally have gotten this question a couple times. And I would say the short kind of answer is I've been doing leadership training in corporate for about 10 plus years now. And what I found in the last few years is that people are scared to speak up because they're scared of being shut down. And I would say that's the short answer. I found that people don't want to be spoken at, like in workshops, like this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to do. They want to be spoken with. And so I really feel there's a healing that gets to happen. And that we get to do it one conversation at a time, and that we have the ability to do that. So I would say that's like the kind of short answer from my work. And then personally, my personal experience with this book, How to Talk to Your Enemies, is my childhood. I was the peacemaker in my family. And I realized as I was writing my book, Ramon, I don't know if you know this about me, but my mom is from Britain, and she comes from a well-to-do family. My dad is from New Orleans, and they kind of came together in the 60s, an interracial couple. And I felt that I was a peacemaker with them, almost translating two different cultures, two different, races, two different experiences. My dad grew up poor. My mom was well-to-do. So I felt like I was translating for them. So I was always a peacemaker in my family. And I start the book off talking about that. Like, even interracial marriage was illegal when my dad first brought my mom back from England. And it was during the 60s, and Martin Luther King was just murdered. And so this cross-cultural communication, I just felt like as a child, this was just something that I just did naturally. And what I find now today is that sometimes our calling is to support communication between two different types of people or different experiences. And I'm just really adept at that. I do really well at that. I'm able to navigate all different types of groups and people and create peace. And some people might say, wow, that is emotionally laborious and tiring. And I see it as energizing and really part of what I'm here to do. And so there's a lot that came up when I was writing this book. And I think I when you see the world and you see some of the problems in the world, and you and I are both very positive people, Ramon. And so I personally see problems as opportunities, and just knowing how to be in America right now and everything that's been going on, it's like, let's use these problems as a way to make bridges and to connect and to heal so that's where I'm coming from. So yes, I feel like this is like my deeper reason to be on this planet, my soul calling, my soul assignment, my God's work. And so this is why I am doing it. So I love it. So it begins.
I love it. And I'm curious, how do you define the word haters? Again, we're talking to Alicia Dunham's How to Talk to Your Enemies. Enemies. How do you define enemies? Alicia Dunham's new book, How to Talk to Your Enemies, is so Alicia, I think that we should be able to smoke inside. You feel not. Am I your enemy? Or is it, I've offended you and I've abused you over the years? Am I your enemy? I'm just teeing you up, of course, but just
Yeah.
help me understand, define enemy as we go talking through this book. How do we define it so I can understand how you define it?
So the title of the book comes from Desmond Tutu. He says, if you want peace, you don't talk to your friends, you talk to your enemies. And so what is enemies? That's a great definition. Your enemy could be someone, a colleague at work that maybe undermines you. It might be your friend who makes you wrong, so they could be right. It's interesting enough, I was just in DC with my parents and I was accidentally played a video. I was in an Uber and it said, do you have any enemies? And my dad was in the front row. It was my Instagram video. And he goes, yeah, I do. They're in the back seat. And me and my mom were sitting in the back seat. I don't think my dad was referring to me, but he was definitely referring to my mom, but he was making a joke. And so I think our enemies can be closer than we think. I think we're treating each other like enemies. Maybe it's your next door neighbor who has different political beliefs. And every time you talk, there's like something clashing. So obviously we don't think our spouse is our enemy or our
some people may. In fairness, Alicia, some people may, and some days me and my wife can get a little tensy there. But continue. I knew what you meant, but sometimes people do.
And thank you, Ramon, for that. So I think it's taking a look that if someone has an opinion different than you,
sure,
if someone sees things a different way than you, if someone votes this way and you vote that way, you might perceive them as enemies because you get in these debates and this discourse that becomes hateful or triggering or what have you. And what does it look like? And this book is all about having inner peace and being able to navigate the world with inner peace. And then if someone shares something with you that is antithetical to your beliefs, how you voted, your social and moral beliefs, that you can still maintain and love them and for them and their beliefs, and still operate in this world toward greater good. And so that's what it's about. So yeah, our enemies are kind of closer than we may think. And Nelson Mandela, and for me, there's a spiritual through line to this book. I use a lot of biblical quotes and quotes from Nelson Mandela and spiritual leaders, for example. And one thing that Nelson Mandela says is that if you see your enemy as your partner, then you can co-create together, because you might have one belief, your enemy might have another belief, but through this dialogue, you can create a third belief. And so it's part of who we are in the world. So this is a day-to-day, moment-by-moment practice. Yes. Being able to listen, being able to share with others, being able to apologize, create boundaries. And really, when one of the book is divided into 5 categories: okay. Communicating with yourself, which includes meditation, prayer, self-reflection, really holding counsel with yourself before you even open your mouth, making sure that, is what I'm going to say harmful or healing? And that's a real question to ask yourself. Am I going to heal through my words, or am I going to harm through my words? And then the second is communicating with others, which is interpersonal communication. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's how to listen, how to apologize, how to connect with others. The third is communicating through differences. So polarizing beliefs, kind of like what it seems to be so, this world just seems to be so divisive now. And that we can communicate through differences, moral differences, political differences, etc., cultural differences, communicating through conflict when we have two differing differences in what outcome we want to see, and then communicating through harm. So I speak into sexism, racism, hate speech, and being able to navigate these type of conversations, because it's really interesting. I was at a conference in Toronto a couple of days ago, and this woman was talking about psychological safety in the workplace. And I said, that's great. And companies, get to create psychological safety. And we also are in a world that we might communicate where it doesn't feel so safe, that we're advocating for ourselves in a situation where someone has a differing belief, or maybe doesn't even feel that we are worthy of communicating or what have you, or doesn't like what we look like or the color of our skin. And so we live in a world where we get to be really courageous and brave in terms of speaking up for ourselves.
I love, so Alicia, I never get political. Rarely do I get political. You kind of follow me, I follow you, but I'm going to get political right now. But not answering the actual political question. I'm asking, what would Alicia Dunham, the author of How to Talk to Your Enemies, do? Let's take systemic racism. I don't believe in it, Alicia. I think that as a Black guy, we can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We can go forward. And I think, you know, those who believe in systemic racism, they have issues. However, Alicia Dunham's firmly held belief there is systemic racism. Don't you see? Ironically speaking to you, right? The white man did this to us, this, that, and the other. Ramon, you're a moron. Alicia, you're a moron. You get where I'm going with this.
Yes.
How do we do this, Alicia? Or take any of the debates that are going on in America. This is where we're at. And I'm not asking you to talk about the actual issue, but just these things going for us. And I don't usually get like this to the audience who's listening to me, but I'm doing it to set the stage for Alicia's comments. Abortion. I think it's sin. I think it's wrong. I think you shouldn't do it. I think it's wrong. You think, Ramon, how could you say that? Of course you'd have freedom. Or any other issue that we go back and forth about. In that context, what's the not the attitude, what's the medicine, what's the prescription for how to talk to your enemies that we're going to find inside this book? How do we do that, Alicia?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that question. I believe that mindfulness is medicine for the moment that we're in right now. So mindfulness, listening, understanding that someone's belief is their belief, and they get to vote that way, they get to shop that way, they get to hold counsel and connect with others, they get to rally for that and sign agreements and documents and signatures and put all of that together. And so politics is an interesting thing, because politics, I believe politics is how we manage resources. And so when people say that they're apolitical, it's like, really, everything's politics, because it's the air we breathe.
Like people say colorblind. No, you're not colorblind.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's the food we eat. And so you talked about systemic, racism. And I believe that human beings, we are flawed. And we've created laws and policies. We've created laws and policies in life that benefit some and burden others. And that's based on just history, and it's based on, like, systemic racism you talk about, for example. There are things where, when GIs came back, some GIs, based on the color of their skin, were able to get loans and purchase homes, and some weren't.
But again, clarifying the aspect that there's two sides of the debate. How does side A talk to that enemy on that side because they believe they're wrong, and the other side, how do they talk to that person?
And exactly, so it's mindfulness. So yes, people can look at the world and say some things are unfair, and we have history, and people can see history from different perspectives as well. And so the way you talk is you listen, and you listen to their side, and it's important. That's why I say this is a climb. This is a daily climb, step by step. I don't ever think, and that's the framework I use in my book. I call it the slippery slope versus conscious climb. Is we daily walk to do the best. I believe inherently all humans are good. We're doing the best that we can. And there's going to be people with differing beliefs. Now, some people may say, if you have a belief that there's no systemic racism and everything is equal, like, I don't even want to talk to you.
Right.
And what does it look like to have a conversation with them and to hear them out? Because it's by our way of being and sharing maybe our particular thoughts that give people a different perspective. So one of the scripts that I have in the book is, if someone shares their perspective, it's like, thank you so much for your perspective on this particular issue. It gives me a different lens on how to view it. And so just to say something like that, instead of fighting or trying to convince someone of something else, you don't have to convince, you just share your truth. And that's why I personally believe that storytelling is the antidote of hate. It's the antidote of fear. It's the antidote of disconnection. Is just sharing our individual stories and connecting with people one-on-one. It's the way to change. It is the slow way to change, and it is the way to change, but it will create change. I personally believe that.
I love it. Alicia, before we wrap up here again, talking to Alicia Dunham's my longtime friend, who amazingly, even though we're focusing on her book, can help you write a great book and get a bestseller and more. But today we're celebrating how to talk to your enemies with the amazing Alicia Dunham's. Alicia, what's one or two more gems inside that book you want to bring out? We've talked a bit about this topic for a while, but one or two more things that, hey, you know what, on page 2 or chapter 3 or whatever, what are 2 or 3 more things, if you wish to share, that is inside how to talk to your enemies?
Yes, I have the 3-step apology. So the 3-step apology is as follows. Number 1, you empathize with the person. Number 2, you apologize. And number 3, you commit. So it's as follows. I see how that must have felt for you. So you empathize with that person. Number 2, I'm sorry for the hurt I've caused. I'm willing to listen and learn. That is apologizing. And then number 3 is your commitment. And that is, I'm committed to doing better. So people want to see behavior change. Yeah. And that's what's important. So you can say that you're sorry. And what people want to do is repair, because reconciliation and repairing is an important part of a relationship. You empathize with the person, and you apologize, but then what are you committed to doing moving forward? That's what we want to hear. And I personally believe in intentional communication. I have written words since 2007. My first book, Gold Digger, Lessons Learned from Richmond I Did. That book was all about being intentional with your word. And my book, I get to how using the right words can radically change your life and relationships. That again is intentional with your communication. So if you want to repair a relationship, what are you committed to creating in that relationship? So I think that's a powerful share as well.
Alicia Dunham, you were talking about one thing you said was the power of being kind. What's that all about?
I call it the power of being kind. Being a kind disruption is a perfect example of being a kind disruption. Would be like in a sexual harassment type of situation where someone is saying something that maybe is not making you feel uncomfortable, and saying something like, there's a line of decency and I feel you just crossed it. Please stop now. So that is assertive, but it is also kind, because the thing that we get to look at here is you might be the very person that compels people to change or to look at their behavior. And so this is really important because I found that sometimes people say, well, it's not my emotional labor to educate you or to call you forth in this moment. But I think as human beings, and I really looked at Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and I reflect on it, and I also refer to it several times in the book. And Martin Luther King says that our destinies are inextricably bound with one another. And so when we are not only responsible for ourselves, but responsible for other human beings, and that perhaps something that we share with them and calling them forth may be the change, that they have to be maybe a different human moving forward, to be kinder, to be gentler, to be more compassionate. So I personally feel it is my responsibility not only to ensure that I am, so sorry about this.
Okay, I hear you fine now.
I don't know why it's doing that. I connected.
No, you're fine. You're fine on my end. What you were saying,
Okay,
you have responsibility.
Good. Yeah, I feel it's our responsibility as human beings, because our destinies are bound. And if you are a wealthy person and living in your house and you're eating every day, but the person down the street is not, and is impoverished and poor and hungry, guess what? Our destinies are bound. And so I personally find it exhilarating to be able to support people in their journey in life. And basically at the end of the day, Ramon, our next level of evolution and growth comes from talking to our enemies.
I love it. Listen, I cannot wait to get your copy of my book. I think I clicked the Amazon button. I believe I'll check that out. But everybody should get, and Alicia, definitely hold that up one more time. Alicia Dunham's new book, How to Talk to Your Enemies. You've just heard our discussion. This is the prescription to book I would say that America needs, but I do think the world needs. You look at other countries, they got jacked up issues too, Alicia, right? And if they only learn to do what I'm seeing right there, talk to your enemies. Any last minute thing you want to say before we end this amazing discussion, Alicia?
One of the examples in the book I talk about is Daryl Davis, and he is a blues musician who befriended the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, and he has a TEDx talk and a book and also a documentary. And one thing that he shared, and it's one of the examples in my book, is pulling up a chair. So I personally believe relationships, being in connection, learning about others through the power of storytelling and listening is really what's going to heal the world.
I love it. Alicia, when you run for president, I'm voting for you. Everybody, this is my good friend, Alicia Dunhams. I'm sure you can find this wherever books are sold, especially easy enough. Click the button on Amazon and get that. Alicia Dunhams, and definitely Alicia Dunhams. Besides that, where can we find you for other things you're doing? What's the best website or place we should look at to explore who you are?
Yeah, you can get a free chapter of the book at talktoyourenemies.com. And you can find me on all social media at Alicia Dunhams.
I love it. Alicia Dunhams, thank you so much for joining us today. And my name is Ramon Ray, publisher of zoneofgenius.com, a host of Rundown with Ramon, personal branding strategist at Celebrity CEO, and publisher of BWC Daily. And this has been, again, Alicia Dunhams with How to Talk to Your Enemies.